Welcome to At Issue. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm H. Wayne Wilson, wishing you a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, celebrate any holiday you like, and that's what we're going to be talking about. It is only once every 6 or so years that we have At Issue on Christmas itself. So we're going to talk about the true meaning of the holidays, and that's expanded to Hanukkah, even though that's not a major Jewish holiday. We're going to be discussing, has there been a loss of the meaning of the holidays? And we're going to have that conversation with Father Kyle Lucas. Father Lucas, thank you for being with us.
Oh, my pleasure.
He is he's with the Blessed Sacrament Church in
right.
Morton, and you're brand new, Father.
Brand new.
And I don't mean of a child either.
That's right. That's right. Just new to the job of being a priest. Just ordained this past May for the Catholic Diocese of Peoria, and stationed out there in Morton. So it's been a joy so far, and this is a joy to be with brothers and sisters discussing very at-heart issues. So brand new and loving it so far. 6 months into any new job, though.
We'll see what he has to say after a half hour on this program.
That's right.
Returning to the show is a pastor, the directing pastor of Crossroads United Methodist Church, Pastor Tom Goodell. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
And a little different environment this time.
Yes, it is.
The last time we were talking about the aftermath of the tornado. So
Yes.
Are things back to normal at the church, more or less?
We think we have about 40% of our congregants are back in their homes. That's probably reflective of the community. Probably another 40% are close within 2 to 3 months of being back in their homes. And then there's a significant portion of the community that will not be back in their homes for many months, and obviously makes the holidays even more difficult.
We'll keep those families in our thoughts as we participate in holiday celebrations. And also joining us, Rabbi Lynn Goldstein. She is the rabbi at Moses Montefiore Temple over in Bloomington. Thank you for coming over to the Peoria studio.
Thank you for inviting me.
And with that, I mentioned that I wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, throw in a couple of other holidays if you like. Did I really mean that when I said that?
That's the big question, isn't it? And one of the things that I think our culture and our churches struggle with is, what is the meaning of Christmas? Is it a secular holiday? Is it a spiritual holy day? And there's tension obviously out in our culture around that, as well as inside the churches, as we try to separate out what the meaning of a spiritual holy day is for us versus what's been appropriated by the culture and especially by commerce this time of year.
So Madison Avenue has kind of distorted the view of Christmas?
Well, it's just the whole understanding of, am I going to be in it to make a buck? Can I go about what I need to do to this time of year? Somehow December always makes itself feel different for families, for individuals, that all of that is going on to where I want to try to see if I can't, as a business, reach in a little deeper, get somebody to reach into that wallet just once more, or more than they ever have before. And so to see why is that what we see and we hear is those are the commercials, the advertisements, and we've lost what started it all anyway. Where did this come from? To say that Madison Avenue or anything like it misses the whole point of how humble and simple was that very first Christmas in a stable in Bethlehem, very poor family surrounded to welcome in what would eventually change the world, what does change the world, but we don't really reflect that in what we say or do.
And let me turn back to Pastor again, and it really, as we look back, it's been 20 centuries since the birth of Christ, but it's only in the last 150, 175 years that we've made Christmas secular in nature. Where did we go wrong? And maybe wrong's the wrong word, but where did we take a different path?
Sure, and there are wonderful histories about kind of the explosion of the commerce of Christmas time, and you're right, it's the mid 19th century where we have poems being written and
a visit from Saint Nick.
That's right, and Thomas Nast is a famous cartoonist who helped to popularize the image of Santa Claus. We have the Charles Dickens and others who are writing these wonderful short stories and encouraging us to think about Christmas, but as a part of that becomes the food and the gift giving. And it really kind of explodes. There was a time, the Pilgrims, when they arrived in the Massachusetts Bay Colony, it was actually illegal to have any public celebration of Christmas. And we've come a long ways from that to where it's almost become, in a sense, a national holiday, even though that presumes that everyone in America is Christian and is going to celebrate Christmas.
And in fact, not everyone in America is Christian. So how does all of this play into, and understanding Hanukkah is a minor holiday.
Correct.
But nonetheless, from many people's perspective, we're celebrating Hanukkah. You know, we always say Merry
Right.
Christmas, Happy Hanukkah.
Yes.
How do you view this?
I think anytime we celebrate a holiday, it is a wonderful thing to wish that somebody enjoys or learns from or grows from the experience of that holiday. And it's lovely to say that. It's lovely to say Happy Hanukkah or whatever other holiday people are observing. But true, Hanukkah is a very, very minor holiday for us. It is one of the most minor holidays on our calendar, if not the single most minor holiday. And our more important holidays generally tend to go, interestingly enough, completely unnoticed by the non-Jewish community because they're not in proximity to a major Christian holiday.
So even though it's a minor holiday, nonetheless, the menorah, the 8 candles, it started on the sundown of the 16th this
Correct.
year. So have we lost the meaning of Hanukkah? Because I know a lot of Jewish families that celebrate Christmas, the secular Christmas. And I don't know whether that's appropriate or not, but they do. They exchange gifts, etc.
The families I know who are involved in Christmas on any level of observance in their home do so as an interfaith family. Christmas is, whether secularized or not, a holiday about Jesus and the birth of Jesus. And Jesus has no place in Judaism other than he was Jewish. But for us, Jesus is completely irrelevant. And so celebrating on any level Jesus's birth or death or midlife crisis even, I mean, whatever, celebrating anything about Jesus is not appropriate in Judaism. So if we have a family that's interfaith, just like we send our kids to a birthday party and they know that they can go to the party and they can celebrate and they can have a good time and they can play games and they can exchange presents, it still doesn't make it their birthday. And so that's what we teach our kids and our families, that if you're in an interfaith family and you have a spouse or a partner who is Christian, of course you want them to be able to celebrate their holiday and you want to help make it a happy holiday for them, just like you would for someone's birthday. But it doesn't make it your holiday and it doesn't make it your celebration. And so I think that's an important distinction.
Have we, Pastor, have we ended up forgetting that Christ is in Christmas? I mean, have people completely forgotten that?
I don't know if people have completely forgotten that, and I think you see if there's an element of generosity, compassion, charity that even in the secular world tends to happen more at Christmas. We have stories of people dropping in gold coins in Salvation Army buckets. They're not going to get any credit. They're not going to be able to claim that on their taxes. The only possible explanation can be that they're caught up in a generous spirit. I think that's wonderful, and I would not want to lose that. I don't think as a Christian I would object if that was a part of another faith tradition that we celebrated. I think there are elements of that are wonderful. What concerns me is the pressure that I see upon the Christian community to spend more than they should be spending, and that somehow the meaning of the holiday is caught up in what they spend.
And you see evidence of that?
I do see evidence of that, and that concerns me. There's a commercial running on the air to buy your family member a new car for Christmas, and then it's wrapped up in a bow. That's a long ways from the spirit of gift giving that's at the heart of Christmas. The idea of gift giving at Christmas for Christians traditionally was gifts given to the poor. and it's somehow morphed into gifts given to our children and our grandchildren, which I have children, I'm going to buy them gifts, and even sometimes gifts to ourselves. And that's when it begins to trouble me, because that's a long ways from the spirit of gift giving associated with Christmas.
So we need to differentiate between the spirit of generosity and that of gift giving.
Right. Going off what Pastor was saying, it's very interesting to see what is the heart of gift giving anyway. Why do we see this as a tradition in our Christian faith, to say, and around the Catholic, and no matter where you find yourself, this generous spirit of giving to, and why even around Christmas? Why is that a gift giving time? Because at the heart of it, we remember in the Christian faith that the amazing gift that God has first given to us, the gift of His Son, the birth of His Son, that ultimately changes everything, the course of history. But to say that's the first gift, God giving Himself to us, and that gets lost in this spirit of consumerism, to say, why am I buying these gifts for my family? We easily get lost in, we all have that tendency, it's in our human nature, we like that feeling it gives us, that satisfaction that we've made a difference in somebody's life. We've changed. We hear these stories of these anonymous donors, even going into stores and clearing off layaways and things like that. These stories, and it makes us have a satisfaction we've made a difference. But when we don't do that, when that's as far as it can go, the effect that it gives my family and myself, or my neighbors, my friends, we've lost that idea of what God has done first for us, and that's what motivates everything in our lives.
I want to talk a little bit about how, because Christmas is a Christian holiday, and in fact, is holiday even the right word? Should we be using holiday?
I don't necessarily call Christmas a holiday. I don't know, in the Catholic tradition, I would prefer it be a holy day.
Sure.
I think that this is basically the same word, but to me, holiday is a secular celebration.
Sure.
4th of July is a holiday. There's nothing particularly spiritual about the 4th of July. I celebrate it.
Sure.
And for me, the helpful distinction has been to separate a holiday from a holy day. A holy day is a day I'm expected to spend with God. A holiday, I'm expecting to spend that with family and friends and parties and all wonderful things. And I have no objection to holidays. It's that somehow we've conflated those two events into one, and I think that's what becomes difficult for me as a Christian, to separate the two out.
And let me return to my original thought, and that is, but I wanted to clarify, because we always refer to Christmas as a holiday, and it should be a holy day. But for you, as a rabbi, are you troubled by the fact that starting in September or October, you walk into stores and you see the secular Christmas holiday? Are you troubled by that?
It troubles us in the sense that, two senses. One, that we watch our neighbors get involved in this huge commercial endeavor, and we look at the cars and the mega computers and the new kitchens or whatever, and we go, really? The story that you were talking about with the gifts, somebody paying off $50,000 that were the layaways for people who couldn't afford gifts for only 100 people, $5,000 a family. And so that kind of commercialism troubles us, and we wonder, have our neighbors lost their sense of what this holiday is about? What is it really about? And so in that sense, we do wonder about the commercialism. We buy our children gifts in Judaism at Hanukkah, primarily because Christians buy their children gifts. And the holidays are in close proximity, and it's when you have a little kid and everybody else is getting gifts, why aren't I getting gifts? We don't go to that kind of extreme. We buy generally small gifts and generally...
I'm sorry, but that brings up a good question. The pressure, because many of the neighbors of your children, those children are getting gifts for Christmas, and your child is, whether that be a Jewish family or a Muslim family, or Hindu family, there's that pressure. What did you get for Christmas?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh.
And that's what happens when they go into school. And nobody says, what did you get for Hanukkah or any other holiday? What'd you get for Christmas? And kids want to have an answer. And they don't want to say nothing. We, for many, many years, I mean, even when I was little, we still had Hanukkah presents. We generally had one slightly more significant thing and a bunch of little tchotchke kinds of presents for the other nights of Hanukkah. And it has become a tradition that either the first or the last night of Hanukkah be a night that we don't give gifts to each other, but we instead donate to feed Ethiopians who are starving, or to send money to Israel or something, so that we are, let's say if you were in my family, I would send a gift to the North American Conference on Ethiopian Jews, which I support personally, and you would get a certificate saying,
Yes.
for the eighth night of Hanukkah, a gift has been given in your honor to a child who will be fed for a month. So that's a big tradition in Judaism. Each of our holidays actually comes with this element of tzedakah, of giving money, of helping other people to live a better life. And it certainly is there with Hanukkah as well.
And you mentioned that, Pastor, with the dropping of a gold coin into the
Yes.
Salvation Army bucket, what have you. That even though we are caught up in the secularism of the holiday, there are still people who remember the holy day and want to give to help others.
Yes, and that's a powerful. If there's a positive nature of the appropriation of Christmas by our culture, it's that some of the elements of that I think transcend Christianity. It's an important part of Jewish faith, of Buddhist faith, of Hindu faith, of Islamic faith, to be charitable to others. Some of the elements that have been appropriated are positive elements, and that's one of them. And people are generally across all faiths more charitable at this time of the year, and that's a positive thing. I don't at all discount that when I speak to my congregation about Christmas as a secular holiday. What I seek to do is to try to remind them of the sacred nature of the day. You know, as Christians, as a Christian, Good Friday is one of the most significant days for me. Thankfully, I will not walk into Target and see a Good Friday display. I don't have to somehow tell my congregation, hey, sort out what this department store, the mall doesn't play Good Friday music. I don't have to sort that out. I intentionally do that with Christmas. The first Sunday of Advent, I spoke rather bluntly to my congregation about the commercialization of Christmas and the desire to spend and what that means for us. And it's the only, I don't know about you, Father, it's the only Christian holiday that I have to do that with.
That's right.
Holy day.
Yeah, I would agree, and I'm glad you mentioned the Advent season, because in the Catholic tradition, this is a Christian tradition, but the Catholic Church especially, we emphasize that moment, because we hear even before Thanksgiving now, we've lost Thanksgiving, that's gone, that where Christmas music is already being played, and the deals, Black Fridays now come Thanksgiving Day to start your deals. So in our liturgical calendar, we have those 4 weeks before to quiet ourselves. All of the scripture readings during our liturgy all point to being still and silent. And it becomes so that we're not so wrapped up in what is about, for the rest, this commercial season, for those that not necessarily are going towards that way, but it's for that time to say, I don't want to get caught up in that. I want to see first what God has done for me and what God continues to do, because so much with the ribbons and the bows and all of that stuff that goes with the season, we lose that sense that today I can be amazed by God and that He's going to touch my life somehow. And that's where we be still and silent, so that for the celebration of Christmas, we can still give our gifts. We can still have our time and time off work and time with family and friends, but we have that sense at heart. And so it's kind of, I don't know if I want to say it's done rightly, that's done rightly, but that to me is the way we most purely celebrate the time.
Is your message one that during the month of December, is it difficult to stay on message because there are so many outside influences? Do you try to counter that in your messages, or?
Not in December. It makes far more sense to me to teach about issues like that. We call it the December dilemma. But we teach about that when it's not right there. when people can stop and think about it. So I will often talk in the spring about it because it can percolate in people's minds. And if they're doing something that maybe isn't appropriate, they have time to think about it and they don't take it as a personal attack.
Yeah.
Whereas if I say something in December, they'll say, what do you mean? What are you saying to me? And so I want to make sure it's understood not to be a personal attack. So I'll often talk about it in, depending on when the high holy days fall for us, sometime in the early fall or maybe in the spring, maybe in a class with kids at some random point after the winter, but not in December.
We quite often attribute the start of the secular aspect of Christmas with the poem 1822,
Yes.
A Visit from St. Nicholas. It was early on, even shortly thereafter, that people were recognizing that we had gotten off of the path of the holy day. Harriet Beecher Stowe, many of you know that name, Uncle Tom's Cabin, but she wrote something that was actually a protest about the secularism,
Yes.
and it was called Christmas or the Good Fairy. And I don't know if you're familiar with
Yes,
that.
I am.
Yeah. And that seems rather appropriate. Is it Christmas or is it the Good Fairy?
Yeah, and I think what I struggled with as a father as well as a Christian is what are the positive elements of the Santa and the wonderful elements of Christmas that have become a part of our culture that I want my children to enjoy, but for them to understand that that's not a part of what Christmas is for us. Christmas is about, for me personally as a Christian, it's about God's being born in the form of a child in a far off place in extreme poverty in the cold and dark of the night. That's what's important, and for them to try to embrace both. And anyone that's a religious person is walking in two worlds. We're walking in the world of our faith, and we're walking in the world. And if we can recognize that we're walking in two worlds, that at least is something. That at least is something.
Yeah. I was going to say off of this, it's beautiful to see these traditions born out of the Christian tradition and the Christian reality. To say that for Saint Nick, this good fairy, it's neat to see where we can explain to our kids the action of God within our life, but to say that this generous fairy is not just, it seems to be something where, are you going to get this gift just out of chance? And it's neat to see when families that get wrapped up in the Santa experience, if I can call it an experience, but to say that, one of the most exciting things for a child I can remember growing up is when you get to Christmas morning, Santa came. He came this year, and there's things there under the tree. And there's a lesson that in the Christian tradition you can use from that to say that every year we know that this good fairy comes and gives gifts, but how every year God is faithful. That's to see how there's not going to be a time when God will cease to give of himself. And so you use that Santa tradition. Yeah, Santa came this year, but you say, this comes from this holy bishop who would go and give his gifts to the poor in the still of night, but he faithfully gave. And so people get to cling to that. And that, for me, is what we can draw from that Santa experience, this good fairy, to draw out that God is going to remain faithful.
Real quickly, in about
Yes.
60 seconds, we probably should, for those who aren't familiar with Hanukkah, what is Hanukkah?
Hanukkah basically is a celebration of the very first recorded battle in human history for religious freedom. The Syrians had stopped the Jews from observing anything that had to do with Judaism on pain of death. And the Jews rose up and said, no, we're willing to pay you taxes, we're willing to be your subjects, but you have to let us worship as we believe is right and true for us. And so they fought and they won. And they reestablished Jewish practice in Israel, and it continues through to the present day.
Okay, thank you. And it's okay for me to give a couple of gifts?
Absolutely.
But maybe I should also remember generosity as well.
We always stress, I always stress that if you can match what you're going to give to the people you love with gifts to charity, to the poor, to people throughout the world, that's maybe the most appropriate way of incorporating both the holiday of Christmas and the spirit of giving with what I anticipate is the gift I'm going to receive on Christmas Day, which is the birth of God in my heart again.
And on that positive note, I'd like to say thank you to my guests, Father Kyle Lucas of Blessed Sacrament in Morton,
Yes, thank you.
to Rabbi Lynn Goldstein of Moses Montefiore in Bloomington, and also to Pastor Tom Goodell
Thanks.
of Crossroads United Methodist Church in Washington. And to all of you, I wish you the best of holidays and the best of holy days. And we will tell you that on New Year's Day, there will be no ad issue. We hope that you celebrate that. Now, that's a holiday, right?
That's a holiday.
That's a holiday, okay? I want to make sure. And that we'll see you on January 8th with a new edition starting a new year right here on WTVP. Thanks for being with us.